The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has just filed an update with the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit regarding its long-running lawsuit against Ripple. The most important part of this development is that both the SEC and Ripple have now filed a joint motion to dismiss their respective appeals. If the court approves this dismissal, it could finally bring the years-long legal battle to an official close. Let's unpack what this actually means and why it matters. Former federal prosecutor James K. Filan shared the SEC's status report, which makes it clear that both sides are ready to move toward closure. According to the report, the parties submitted the dismissal motion last week, stating that each side will cover its legal costs and fees. This is not just a procedural update. It signals that Ripple and the SEC are actively working to put an end to the fight rather than dragging it further through the courts. Now, for some context, back on April 16, 2025, the SEC asked the Second Circuit to pause the case for 60 days so that it could pursue a possible resolution with Ripple. That move showed that even the regulator was open to negotiation rather than continuing to push its appeal. The court responded by ordering the SEC to file a status report by June 16th, essentially forcing both parties to reveal whether progress was being made. Part of this so-called resolution process was actually very significant. The proposal included cutting Ripple's penalty down from $125 million to $50 million, as well as dismissing the injunction that restricted Ripple's ability to sell XRP to institutions in the future. But U.S. District Judge Analisa Torres rejected this idea. She refused to modify her original judgment, pointing out flaws in how the parties approached the modification. Ripple and the SEC tried again, refiling the motion to address those flaws, but Judge Torres still stood firm. Even so, Judge Torres encouraged the parties to withdraw their appeals rather than keep pushing for changes. That advice turned out to be influential. Following her direction, Ripple and the SEC agreed to file for dismissal of both appeals, which is exactly what happened last week. So where does that leave us now? In its June 16th update, the SEC confirmed that the joint stipulation of dismissal is currently before the Second Circuit. This means the appellate court must now decide whether to approve the dismissal. Until that happens, the case isn't technically over. If the dismissal is approved, the outcome is clear. Ripple will still pay $125 million to the SEC for selling XRP to institutions without registering those sales. Importantly, the permanent injunction on Ripple's future institutional sales remains in place. That means Ripple cannot sell XRP to institutions in the future unless it first registers those sales with the SEC. This outcome is not exactly what Ripple wanted, considering the company tried to negotiate for a lower fine and freedom from future restrictions. On the other hand, it also shows that the SEC did not fully succeed in reshaping the judgment to its liking either. Both sides had to make compromises, and in the end, they agreed to stop fighting the appeals. From a broader perspective, this situation highlights a few important things. First, it shows how regulatory battles in crypto often drag on for years and consume massive resources. Second, it underlines how much influence individual judges, like Judge Analisa Torres in this case, have in shaping the final outcome. By rejecting the proposed modifications, Torres ensured that her original ruling stood firm, and neither side could alter it through appeals. Finally, for XRP holders and the wider crypto community, this case remains a lesson in uncertainty. Even when it looks like progress is being made, last-minute shifts, such as Torres rejecting modifications, can change the direction of the entire lawsuit. The market has been watching every step closely, and this latest development might bring a sense of closure, but it still leaves Ripple under significant regulatory restrictions. To summarize, the SEC and Ripple jointly filed to dismiss their appeals. Each side will pay its own legal fees. Ripple will still pay a $125 million fine. The injunction on future institutional sales remains in force. The Second Circuit must approve the dismissal before the case can finally be declared over. This is not a complete victory for Ripple, nor is it a total win for the SEC. Instead, it's the end of a long battle where both sides had to step back from appeals and accept a compromise. The real question now is how this will affect Ripple's strategy with XRP in the years to come, especially with the injunction still in place.